So thank you guys for being here. This is trying to get everybody in at the same time. So we have parents of the rising ninth graders who will be transitioning to high school in a few short months. We have an admin from our secondary schools, our middle schools, and our high schools, counselors from the high schools and middle schools as well, so that we're all having the same information. If we have questions that come up after this, or you think of something later on and you're not sure who to reach out to. So here we are with our rising seventh graders. Just a few bookkeeping items or housekeeping items. We are recording, so we will be able to go back and look at this later. I'll have it posted. I'm looking at how to easily send the meeting recording to the students and the parents of those who are not able to join us today. So yes, we have our cameras and our mics turned off just for interference. So we do not have that interference, and I will try to keep an eye on that chat box and stop every few minutes to address any questions, and also have questions at the end, or time for questions at the end. So this is exciting. I mean, you guys, you knew this when you started. Your students starting in first grade was the first cohort of our DLI students, our dual language immersion students in Dare County. And as parents and students, you began this journey in first grade, setting the path with growing pains and all the excitement that comes with being the first. You have completed 8 years of dual language instruction, developing your bilingual skills in English and Spanish, and you continue to develop biliteracy skills and build that cross-cultural awareness. Rolling into high school, students who completed the dual language immersion classes in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade will enter high school with 2 world language credits. Along with some other high school credits that students are able to earn in 8th grade, or as with other credits they're able to earn in 8th grade. This does not affect their GPA in high school, but it does give them those high school credits. And the STAMP assessment, which is a standards-based mastery, what STAMP stands for, is a Spanish assessment, a Spanish language proficiency assessment that will help us place the students in their high school Spanish class. And we'll be talking a lot more about that in a few minutes. So there's the STAMP. It's different from other tests that we're used to, whether it's our EOGs, our EOCs. The STAMP is real world communication. It's not a list of vocab or a list of verbs that people have to conjugate, but it's truly real life situations and how well the students are able to communicate and make themselves understood as well. So it's not perfect, but just as we are continuously learning English and developing more and higher level skills, that's where the students are as well. So it's very organic. It's just them talking and understanding and interpreting. It's not a high school world language class that a lot of us are familiar with and learning all of those verb conjugations. One of the things I have in here, the STAMP, when we get the results back, and your students are taking the STAMP tests as we speak. A few students took the test, and it has 4 domains as they were listed on the previous screen: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And a few students took those tests or that assessment before spring break. A lot of students will be taking it this week and finishing up next week. And it breaks it down into what they call novice, intermediate, and high levels. So it's not a graded percentage like we are often used to. And then each of those, the novice, intermediate, and high, are broken down into 3. So we have novice low, novice mid, and novice high. And then the same thing, intermediate low, intermediate mid, and intermediate high. And trying to wrap our heads, myself included, trying to wrap my head around what those novice, intermediate, and high levels look like. This is trying to break it down to the most basic. So novice would be a first year of a world language, Spanish 1, French 1, German 1, whatever it is. So words and phrases, present tense mostly, and limited sentence formation. So if we think back to when we took a language in high school and you got to stand there and say, "Hi, my name is Joey. I like to play soccer." That's not what our DLI students are doing because they've been learning language organically since first grade. But that novice is very basic. And then intermediate, and again, we have intermediate, low, mid, and high. The intermediate is very common for middle school students who have been in the DLI program. So they have full sentences. They can give us sentences. It does not have to be perfect as far as grammar, but they have access to a lot more vocabulary. They're able to kind of navigate for meaning. If they don't know a word in Spanish, they can explain what they're trying to think of. So that circumlocution is what it's called. So they can figure out what they need to say to express themselves. And as far as the grammar and the verb tenses, they can give us some present, past tense, maybe some future. Sometimes they'll get some of those tenses mixed up as they're navigating for meaning, but they can describe and they can explain and they can narrate. So, and yes, with some errors because we're still learning all of that. So right there, that novice and intermediate is what we are most familiar with as far as the levels of understanding or the levels of language proficiency that our students in DLI have right now. Does that make sense? I want to stop there. There's a little bit more about STAMP, but that is a little bit weird just to wrap our heads around. Okay. A little bit more of that comparison. Again, novice, high, novice or beginners. So those beginners, novice, high students on a language proficiency would be at a first year of a world language. Our intermediate, low, and mid are looking at Spanish 2 or second year of a world language, and then intermediate high would be looking at that third year of a language. And we always have these interesting ways of looking at things, but the STAMP or any of these language proficiency assessments that are looking at communication skills, they are measuring what students can do with the language, not just what they've learned about the language. So again, it's not regurgitating a vocab list or conjugating verbs, but using that language in a real life situation. This is a little bit more information on those actual levels. So we're looking at our students being in that yellow and that intermediate level. And it talks about, it gives you a little bit of information about what they can do. So intermediate low, language learners can handle short social interactions in straightforward situations. And as we get a little bit higher, intermediate mid, they can handle those short social interactions with some complicated communication tasks. And then your intermediate high, students can converse comfortably in routine social situations and handle a substantial number of uncomplicated tasks and situations. So again, organic, natural conversations about the weather, about what they did in a very natural way, and then becoming a little bit more advanced as they travel up from intermediate low, mid, high into that advanced low category. What we are looking at for our rising ninth graders, for our current eighth graders moving into high school at the end of August, we are looking at that STAMP placement, and how they do on that STAMP assessment will probably guide the students into Spanish 2 or Spanish 3. And then there's that normal progression 2, 3, 4. With this generation, as we continue to build the dual language program, we're looking at hopefully being able to offer with the student interest, which definitely guides some of our classroom offerings or class offerings, looking at advanced placement, AP Spanish language and culture, and then the AP Spanish literature and culture. So English language our AP classes are offered. And we're looking at building that with these students who continue through Spanish 2, 3, 4, whatever their stamp placement guides us, looking at being able to continue their language development and offer AP classes in 3 years. One of the other things our dual language students will have a step up on that not all of our students do is a seal of biliteracy. It's also called the Global Language Endorsement, and this is an additional recognition the students receive on their high school diploma. Demonstrates high level of proficiency in 2 or more languages. All of our students have the required English classes. So they've taken the 4 years of English as required to receive their diploma. So that's already done. We're looking at them also then receiving the seal of biliteracy by demonstrating that proficiency in the additional language of Spanish. And this is automatically, it's on their high school diploma. We have seen a few students earning it not through dual language, but through 4 years of that world language class, whether primarily Spanish, but also we've had some French in there. And this is recognized by colleges and universities, and it does open up additional scholarship opportunities for students. So we've been, like I said, we've had a few students in Dare County that we've been able to recognize them with the global language endorsement on their diplomas over the last 3 or 4 years. And they're really excited to have something very few students have. And like I said, have that extra scholarship avenue there. The global language endorsement, as it says, as far as for college readiness, this is it makes your application stronger. I mean, it is showing you that you have completed at least 4 years of a second language or third language for some students. Advanced placement opportunities when we're looking at those AP classes that maybe they already completed in high school, or will be able to look at those classes in college, and open it up for, if they want to study a language, it gives them that up in college. For career readiness, we all know how helpful it is. We've seen it in our community. We've seen it when we travel, but just how helpful it is in business to have those bilingual skills that are very much in demand. Public service here with hospitality or business, healthcare. We have a lot of people in our community that benefit from being able to speak another language. That's the basic. I'm going to stop right there. And if there are any questions, or any of my school people also have questions, because we've kind of talked about it, but this is the first time we've really sat down and everybody had the same conversation. Do we have any questions right now about STAMP? And STAMP kind of drives the or part of the follow-up to classes. So that's and what I mean by that, I'm sorry, the STAMP results will let us know, kind of guide us to scheduling in high school if we're looking at Spanish 2 or Spanish 3. So do we have any questions about that right now from school people or parents? Okay. I've also had a couple questions from parents at different events, at different school events, that they're wondering, well, the parents are often, I've had a couple parents that are concerned, maybe they don't think their child is ready for a Spanish 2. They're like, can my child retake, or not retake, but can my child take Spanish 2 in high school because they're not ready for Spanish 3? I think I misspoke. And yes, we do, as with anything, an assessment, a test, whether it's STAMP, that's that organic language, or a traditional world language test, that's only one bit of that child. That's one snapshot. So we might have a conversation where the student does really well on the STAMP assessment, and those results would kind of guide us into Spanish 3. But that student says, wait, I want Spanish 2 because a traditional world language in that second year provides a very, very strong grammar instruction. So you may have a student who, or the parent, who wants them to really strengthen those grammar skills in a more traditional setting, not that organic dual language development. So that's an option. You have the flip side. We might have somebody who was nervous on that 1 day or 2 days that they completed the stamp, and they did not score as strongly as the teacher thinks they probably are capable of. And that might be a conversation where we say, okay, you scored in that intermediate range, but we think you are higher up, maybe more towards that advanced range. So the stamp is one part of that, but it's also the conversations that we want to have with the parents, the counselors, and that dual language teacher who is the best person really to look at how that student is doing with vocabulary and grammar and navigating and constructing meaning. So we look at the stamp, we're waiting for those stamp results. And then once we have those in, we'll really be able to dig in and have more specific conversations with our high school counselors as far as scheduling Spanish 2 or Spanish 3 options. And moving beyond that, I'm excited about how the program is going to grow into high school. And we have some phenomenal teachers at Cape Hatteras Secondary, First Flight High, and Manio High who have taught AP Spanish classes in other schools and are looking forward to being able to develop that here. So again, that's not right away. That's a couple years down the road, and that's with hopefully the interest from the students that we can fill those classes, offer those classes, and then fill them. So that's the most immediate things, are looking at their high school classes. Along with those high school classes, and something that we hope to be able to offer is an interpreter certification program. Now, this is something that to date we have not had in Dare County. It is something that about 6 or 7 community colleges in North Carolina offer. And it is a community college interpreter certification program. So it's college level coursework. Completing this certification program, the students will have this certificate and be able to start working in the real world as interpreters. It is not built into our current high school curriculum. This is something that is above and beyond that. So it is at the community college level. It could be part of the CCP program that we have. And it's something that we would look into having those conversations. Would it be with COA here locally or other community colleges? And they vary. I've been digging into it a lot. Some of minimum, it's 18 credits. So that's something that students would be able to look at and start working on in probably their junior year, depending on their level of language proficiency. And some of these programs are done primarily online. If we were not able to find something with a local entity, it would be an online program. But they develop more listening and speaking accuracy, obviously continue to build the cultural competence that's been a huge part of dual language, professional ethics, because they would be conceivably privy to some confidential information. So the professional ethics, and obviously that strong proficiency so they can navigate back and forth, really understanding the context of what they're interpreting or translating in English and being able to flip that over into Spanish. So this is something that we're still 2 or 3 years down the road, but we're excited that the program is growing in that direction and looking into how we can offer that. The students, I kind of designed this, geared this toward the students, and I have a lot more adults here, but we know this. We know that the students, having completed this year, their 8th year in the dual language program, they are well on their way to not only being bilingual, but being biliterate. A lot of us know it's easy to speak the language. Turning around and reading and writing it can always be a little bit more of a challenge, but our kids are well on their way to that. And again, that global awareness, global empathy, cultural competence, all of that, not just the language skills, but just having find that it's a little bit more open to life outside of the Outer Banks. So just being globally prepared and moving on with that. Next steps, as we said, we are going to continue developing language skills with our students in the high school classes, build those language skills and language proficiency so we can grow into advanced classes, whether those are the AP classes we talked about or looking at what options we have through maybe COA or outside of COA with the CCP opportunities. And like I said, there's that interpreter certification as a really exciting option for our students. As far as our immediate next steps, we have that stamp assessment that most of our students will be getting ready for in the next 2 weeks. What's left of this week and next week. Looking at that high school scheduling, and of course, the continued interest in the program as we grow in high school will open up doors for more opportunities and look at us as Dare County Schools really making sure we are offering what our students want. Questions as we move on from tonight and we have this posted. If you have questions about stamp preparation, the best person to reach out to is your DLI teacher because they know exactly what that schedule is in their building. High school scheduling would be your school counselor. And I know the counselors at the middle school have been having those conversations with students. And here we are liaisoning with the high school counselors. As far as future opportunities, if we're looking at growing that into offering those AP classes or further than the AP classes, looking at that that certificate credential opportunity, reach out to me. And that is it. If you want me to go back over any slides or have any questions about something that you want to review, please raise your hand or type it in the chat, and I will do that. All right, thank you very much. Once I have this all linked, you will be able to reach me and shoot me any questions or reach out to your school personnel. Thank you and have a great evening.